There are several factors that go into making a really good decision about what's most important. The top sort of thing on the list in terms of deciding what's most important to you is identifying your needs. Number one, what do you need right now? Do you need sleep? Do you need money? Do you need companionship? Like, what are your needs right now? And of course, we all need all those things, but what are the things you need to focus on getting more of? And what is your capacity for taking on projects in order to meet those needs? How much time do you have? How much emotional bandwidth do you have? How much money do you have to spend? How much money can you afford to lose by not earning it? Those kinds of questions of capacity are crucial to frame and constrain the decisions you're going to make about what you're focusing on. So once you kind of have some sense of that, then you can go into the next piece of it, which is, okay, what are my criteria for success for any given thing that I'm going to focus on? And I recommend that you look at these criteria under one domain at a time. So, for example, within your business life, work life, things are going to compete with each other. You'll also have different criteria for, say, your health. You do have to look at those things together in some sense because you're one human being and you have to be able to do both of those things. So time-wise, you have to be looking at, you can't have a 5-hour-a-day workout routine and also be trying to launch a new podcast at the same time, probably. Time-wise, those things aren't going to quite work. But if you're trying to decide like podcast versus pitching speaking gigs, those things you compare directly one-to-one because they have similar criteria for success. What are you trying to achieve right now in your business? That's what you need to be looking at. Then step 3 with this is to think through the probabilities. So here are your options. I think that this has a good possibility of success in this area and less of a possibility of success in this area. So you're thinking through like, how likely is this option to hit these criteria for success? Christy asks about how to decide between high risk and high reward goals versus applying for stable work that she knows she's qualified for or something in between. So translating skills from this high risk passion to more in demand work. And essentially, I think you start the same place I talked about before. What are your criteria for success? You add in what's your tolerance for risk? Like how much risk can you put up with? How stable are your finances? How much can you tolerate in terms of not making income for a period of time? How much work can you put into this? Those kinds of things are really important. You need to look at probability. You really need to look at what is the likelihood of success on these criteria for success that I have just defined. What is the likelihood for success given these criteria for each of these options? And if it's a very small likelihood of success for these criteria, you could decide to try it depending on your tolerance for risk. But you're getting much more clear about what it is that you're trading off there and what are the options. Essentially, you want to look at each of the options, say like if option A, which is take this risky but exciting idea and try to play that out. And then there's C, which is take a job that's, reliable, but isn't that exciting. And then B in between, which is like do a little about like figure out something in between. Okay, what does that look like? And how likely is it that I would achieve success at option A? And then you have to make a decision. That point is where you go in and you say, where do I need more information? So if you say, what's the probability? And you're like, I honestly don't know. Why don't you know? What are the things that you don't know that would lead to you having more assurance around this? Well, to be clear, luck is luck. Chance happens. You don't have a crystal ball. You don't know what's going to happen. One of my biggest sort of bugaboos that I talk about all the time is like people who build their life plan around a bestseller book or something like that. I mean, they could have a bestseller book, but it's not a plan, right? Unless you're independently wealthy, that's not a way to move forward with your life because of our tolerance for risk. Like we need to make sure that we are okay and taken care of. So if winning at option A depends on massive luck, buyer beware, essentially. Let me just say here, if what you're considering doing is starting an independent business as a creative where you're going to work with clients, initially, at least as sort of one-on-one, that is risky, but that's not the risk of like, will it hit the top of the podcast charts or something? That's where you need to do the information gathering. Like, what do I
Yep.
need to know to make sure that that's something that's going to be at a risk level that I'm comfortable with?